I sit in my dream house looking out at the tulip garden blooming in front of my bay windows, and I still cannot believe this is real. For 15 years, every single holiday, my family called me the embarrassment, the one who always messed things up, the black sheep who could never do anything right. But what they did not know was that while they were busy tearing me down, I was quietly building something beautiful. And when I finally got my revenge, it was not through anger or spite. It was through joy so pure and success so undeniable that they had no choice but to watch from the sidelines. Before I tell you how I turned 15 years of humiliation into the sweetest victory, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever felt like the black sheep too. Trust me, this story has a twist that will make your day. Growing up in a modest middle-class home in Ohio, I always thought every family worked the way mine did. My father worked as an accountant for a local firm, coming home every evening with his tie loosened and briefcase in hand. My mother was a nurse at the county hospital, always tired, but somehow finding energy to fuss over my siblings. There was Marcus, my older brother by 3 years, who seemed to glide through life effortlessly. Everything he touched turned to gold in my parents' eyes. Then there was Sophia, 2 years younger than me, with her blonde curls and bright blue eyes that could melt anyone's heart. She was the baby, the princess, the one who could do no wrong. And then there was me, Jenna, the middle child who loved books more than people and spent hours sketching buildings and designing imaginary houses. Even as a little girl, I dreamed of becoming an architect, of creating spaces where people could feel safe and happy. I thought my family would be proud of my dreams, my good grades, my determination to make something of myself. I was wrong. The first time I really noticed the difference was during Thanksgiving when I was 12 years old. I had been helping in the kitchen, trying so hard to be useful, when I accidentally knocked over the gravy boat. The brown liquid spread across the white tablecloth like a stain on my childhood. My mother's face turned red as she snapped at me in front of all our relatives. "Jenna, you are always the one causing trouble. Why cannot you be more careful like your brother and sister?" Marcus had spent that same morning playing video games instead of helping, but somehow I was the problem. Sophia had spilled juice on her dress earlier, but everyone just laughed and called it adorable. But my accident. That was a character flaw, evidence that I was just naturally clumsy and inconsiderate. I spent the rest of that Thanksgiving dinner in my room, tears streaming down my face as I listened to the laughter from downstairs. That was the first time I realized that no matter what I did, I would always be viewed differently than my siblings. But I was determined to change that. I threw myself into my studies with a passion that surprised even my teachers. I maintained a perfect grade point average all through middle school and high school. I joined the debate team, the academic decathlon, and won first place in a statewide architecture design competition. I thought surely these achievements would make my parents see me differently. Instead, when I proudly showed them my acceptance letter to Stanford University with a partial scholarship, my father just nodded and said, "Well, at least you have something." My mother was too busy helping Sophia pick out a dress for her first school dance to really pay attention. Meanwhile, when Marcus got accepted to the local state university for marketing, they threw him a celebration dinner and invited all our relatives. The pattern was set. Marcus was the golden boy who could do no wrong. Sophia was the beloved princess who deserved the world. And I was just Jenna, the one who tried too hard and somehow still managed to be disappointing. Christmas that year, when I was 14, I brought home the trophy from the architecture competition. I was so excited to share my win with my family. I had beaten out hundreds of other students from across the country. The local newspaper had even written an article about me. But when I walked into our living room with the trophy in my hands, my parents were busy discussing Marcus's first girlfriend and planning what gift to get her. When I finally managed to show them my award, my mother glanced at it briefly and said, "That is nice, honey. But you know, most people do not understand all that complicated design stuff you are always talking about." That night, lying in bed, I made a decision. I could not change how my family saw me, but I could prove to myself and the world that I was worth more than their limited vision. I was going to become the best architect I could be with or without their support. College at Stanford was like stepping into a different universe. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people who appreciated intelligence, creativity, and ambition. My professors encouraged my innovative designs, and my classmates respected my work ethic. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But even 300 miles away from Ohio, I could not escape my family's influence completely. Every phone call home was a reminder of how little my achievements meant to them. When I excitedly told them about my internship at a prestigious architecture firm in San Francisco, my mother sighed and said, "Jenna, Why do you always have to pick things so far away? Why cannot you just study something practical close to home, like Marcus did? Marcus had chosen marketing at the state university, living in a dorm just 30 minutes from our house. My parents visited him every other weekend, bringing home-cooked meals and doing his laundry. They bragged to neighbors about how practical and down-to-earth he was, how he would probably take over the family business someday. Meanwhile, Sophia was thriving in high school. She was popular captain of the cheerleading squad and dating the quarterback. My parents attended every single one of her games and posted constantly on Facebook about their little star. They knew the names of all her friends, her favorite restaurants, and her dreams of studying fashion design. But they rarely asked about my life in California. When I called to tell them about making the dean's list, my father would grunt approvingly, and then immediately change the subject to Marcus's latest girlfriend or Sophia's homecoming dress, the Easter. I came home during my sophomore year was particularly painful. I had just finished an incredibly challenging semester where I designed a community center that my professor said showed real professional promise. I was bursting with pride and excitement, eager to share my passion project with my family. But when I started explaining the design concepts, showing them my drawings, and talking about sustainable architecture and community impact, I watched their eyes glaze over. My father looked at his watch. My mother started clearing dishes even though we were not finished eating. Finally, Marcus interrupted me and said, "Jenna, do you always have to sound so pretentious? We get it. You are studying fancy stuff that the rest of us are too dumb to understand." My mother laughed and patted his arm. "Oh, Marcus, do not be so hard on your sister. She just likes to use big words to make herself sound important." I felt something crack inside my chest that day. It was not anger exactly. It was worse. It was the realization that my own family saw my passion and intelligence as character flaws, as evidence that I thought I was better than them. After graduating summa cum laude from Stanford, I landed my dream job at a prestigious architecture firm in San Francisco. The salary was more than my father made after 20 years of accounting. I was the youngest person they had ever hired directly out of college. I was designing buildings that would shape skylines and communities. But when I called home to share the news, my mother's first response was, "Oh, Jenna, that salary sounds nice. But have you thought about how expensive it must be to live in California? You could probably live much more comfortably if you just moved back to Ohio and got a normal job." My father chimed in, "Your mother is right. All that education is great, but at some point you need to be practical. Marcus just opened his own coffee shop here in town, and your mother and I are so proud of him for being an entrepreneur." They had invested $10,000 in Marcus's coffee shop and talked about it constantly. When I mentioned that my starting salary was 3 times what Marcus made from his shop, they seemed annoyed, as if I was showing off rather than sharing good news. The breaking point came during Christmas when I was 26. I had just bought my first condo in San Francisco, a beautiful 1-bedroom with exposed brick walls and huge windows overlooking the city. I had saved for 3 years to afford the down payment, working overtime and living frugally to make my homeownership dream come true. I drove back to Ohio with photos of my new place, excited to share this milestone with my family. I thought surely they would be proud that their daughter had achieved the American dream of owning property in one of the most expensive cities in the country. Instead, my mother looked at the photos with a frown and said, "Jenna, why would you buy something so expensive so far from family? You could have gotten twice the house for half the price here in Ohio. You always have to make things complicated." But the real devastation came later that evening. I discovered that Marcus had been engaged for 6 months, and my parents had been planning his wedding for weeks without telling me. They had booked venues, chosen flowers, and even ordered save-the-date cards. I was finding out about my own brother's engagement by overhearing phone conversations about catering options. When I confronted them about not telling me, my mother actually seemed annoyed. "Well, you are always so busy with your important California life. We did not want to bother you with family stuff." The final blow came at Christmas dinner in front of all our extended family. My aunt asked about my new condo, and before I could answer, my mother jumped in. "Oh, Jenna always has to be the one doing things differently. She bought this tiny, expensive apartment in San Francisco instead of just moving home and settling down like a normal person. You know how she's always trying to prove something." Then she turned to me with that fake smile she used when she wanted to sound loving, but was actually being cruel. "Jenna, honey, you are always the embarrassment of the family. We just never know what you are going to do next to make us look bad." The room went silent. 23 relatives stared at me, some with pity, others with the uncomfortable fascination people have when witnessing someone being humiliated. I felt my face burn with shame and anger, but mostly with the crushing realization that my own mother had just publicly declared me the family embarrassment. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom for what I swore would be the last time I made a decision. I was done trying to win their approval. I was done shrinking myself to make them comfortable. I was going to build a life so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably amazing that they would have no choice but to respect me. And if they could not do that, then they did not deserve to be part of my joy. 3 years later, at 29, my life had transformed in ways I could never have imagined. I had left the big architecture firm to start my own practice, and business was booming. My design for a luxury eco-resort had been featured in Architectural Digest, and suddenly, everyone wanted the innovative, sustainable approach I brought to every project. But the most beautiful change was David. I met him at a professional conference where he was presenting on green building technologies. He was brilliant, kind, and genuinely fascinated by my work. For the first time in my life, I was with someone who saw my ambition as attractive rather than threatening, who celebrated my successes rather than minimizing them. David understood what it was like to be driven to have big dreams and the determination to achieve them. He came from a family of engineers and teachers who had always encouraged his goals. When I told him about my family's treatment, he was genuinely shocked. "Jenna, what they are doing is not normal," he said. "Good parents lift their children up, they do not tear them down." Our relationship grew deeper as I began to see myself through his eyes. I was not too ambitious or too complicated. I was not an embarrassment. I was a successful, talented woman building something meaningful with my life. During this time, I had gradually reduced contact with my family to basic holiday texts and birthday cards. I stopped calling with updates about my life because the conversations always left me feeling diminished. When they occasionally called me, it was usually because they needed something or wanted to complain about my absence from some family gathering. My mother would leave voicemails saying things like, "Jenna, I do not understand why you have become so distant. You used to be such a family-oriented person. I guess success has changed you." The guilt trips were constant, but I had learned to recognize them for what they were: attempts to maintain control over my emotions. Marcus had gotten married in an elaborate ceremony that I attended, but felt completely excluded from. I was not asked to be in the wedding party, was not consulted about planning, and was seated at the table with distant relatives I barely knew. Sophia was the maid of honor, of course, and spent the entire reception talking about her own future wedding plans. During the reception, I overheard my parents talking to relatives about how proud they were of Marcus for staying true to his roots and marrying a nice local girl who understands family values. The implication was clear. My success meant I had abandoned my values and forgotten where I came from. That wedding was the last family event I attended. I was tired of being made to feel like an outsider at my own family gatherings. Then everything changed when David and I found the house. It was a beautifully restored Victorian in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew I was home. The house had original hardwood floors, soaring ceilings, and huge windows that filled every room with golden California light. The kitchen had been updated with modern appliances, but retained its vintage charm. And the garden? Oh, the garden was like something from a fairy tale, with climbing roses, herb beds, and a mature oak tree that provided perfect shade for reading. The asking price was $1.2 million. 3 years earlier, that number would have seemed impossible. But my business was thriving. David's engineering consulting was highly sought after, and together we had built the kind of financial stability that made dreams possible. The day we got the keys, I sat in what would become our home office and felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was not just a house, it was proof that the little girl who used to sketch buildings in her bedroom in Ohio had grown up to create something beautiful and lasting. That evening, as David and I sat on our new front porch drinking wine and watching the sunset paint the hills gold, I had an idea that would change everything. "I want to throw a housewarming party," I told him. "A big one. I want to invite everyone who has supported us, everyone who has been part of our journey." David smiled and pulled me closer. "That sounds perfect. Who should we invite?" I started making a mental list: my colleagues from the architecture firm, my college roommates who had become lifelong friends, our neighbors who had already welcomed us with fresh-baked cookies, the contractor who had helped us with renovations, even the cheerful mailman who always asked about our day. And then I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. "I am not inviting my family," I said quietly. David looked at me carefully. "Are you sure this is a big moment? Do you want to give them one more chance?" I thought about all the years of criticism, all the times they had made me feel small, all the ways they had failed to celebrate my achievements. I thought about my mother calling me the family embarrassment in front of everyone. I thought about how they had never once visited me in California, never once shown genuine interest in my life or my dreams. I am sure, I said, but I am going to make sure they know about it. The party planning became an outlet for all my creativity and joy. We hired a catering company that specialized in farm-to-table cuisine. We strung lights throughout the garden and hired a jazz trio to play on the back patio. We bought enough flowers to turn our already beautiful garden into something that looked like a magazine spread. Most importantly, I planned to document everything on Facebook. Every photo, every moment, every detail of our celebration. I wanted the world to see the life I had built, the friends who truly loved and supported me, the beautiful home that represented everything I had worked for. The guest list grew to 57 people, and the RSVPs poured in with enthusiasm. Cannot wait to see your gorgeous home. So excited to celebrate with you. You deserve this happiness. For the first time in years, I felt surrounded by people who genuinely cared about my success rather than resenting it. 2 weeks before the party, I posted the first photo on Facebook, a picture of our front garden in full bloom with the caption, "Getting ready to celebrate our new home with the people we love most." Dreams really do come true when you stop waiting for permission to pursue them. The likes and comments poured in immediately. Friends from every stage of my life congratulated us, asked for decorating tips, and shared their own home buying dreams. It felt like being wrapped in a warm hug from everyone who had ever believed in me. I knew my family would see the posts. We were still connected on Facebook, though we rarely interacted. I could picture Sophia scrolling through her feed and stopping at my photos. I could imagine Marcus showing the post to his wife and making some comment about how I was showing off again. I could visualize my parents' faces when they realized not only was I successful beyond anything they had imagined, but I was celebrating that success without them. The morning of the party, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. This was not about revenge or proving anything to people who had never been willing to see my worth. This was about joy, pure and simple. This was about celebrating a life built on my own terms with people who had chosen to love and support me. As I got dressed in a flowing blue dress that matched the California sky, I realized that somewhere along the way, I had stopped needing my family's approval. I had found my own definition of success, my own circle of love, my own version of home. The party exceeded every expectation. Our house filled with laughter, music, and the kind of warm conversation that happens when people genuinely enjoy each other's company. Colleagues mixed easily with college friends, neighbors bonded with my former Stanford roommates, and everyone marveled at the transformation we had made to our Victorian gem. I moved through the evening in a state of pure happiness, taking photos constantly and posting them to Facebook in real time. The garden party setup looked like something from a luxury magazine. The catering was perfection with locally sourced appetizers and a signature cocktail we had named the Golden Gate Sunset. The jazz trio created the perfect soundtrack for meaningful conversations and spontaneous dancing. Every post I made gathered dozens of likes and comments within minutes. "This is absolutely magical. Your home is stunning. So happy for you both. This is what dreams look like." I tagged people in photos, shared behind-the-scenes shots of the preparation, and posted video clips of the live music. Each update felt like sharing joy with an extended community of people who truly celebrated my happiness. Around 9 that evening, my phone started buzzing with notifications that were different from the usual party congratulations. First, it was a missed call from Sophia, then Marcus, then my mother, then my father, all within the span of 20 minutes. I was standing in my kitchen watching David tell a story that had our guests laughing so hard that tears streamed down their faces when I realized what was happening. My family had discovered the party. Not through an invitation or a conversation, but through Facebook. They were watching their daughter and sister celebrate the biggest achievement of her life from behind a computer screen, realizing they had been deliberately excluded. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This had never been about hurting them. It had been about protecting my joy from people who had consistently tried to diminish it. But seeing those missed calls, I knew the confrontation I'd been avoiding for 3 years was finally coming. I decided not to answer. Not tonight. Tonight was about celebration, not explanation. The party continued until nearly midnight, with guests reluctant to leave the magical atmosphere we had created. As David and I said goodbye to the last of our friends, I felt a profound sense of completion. We had officially christened our new home with love, laughter, and genuine community. After everyone left, I sat on our front steps and scrolled through the Facebook posts from the evening. The photos told the story of a perfect night, David and me toasting in front of our fireplace, friends gathering around our dining room table, the garden glowing under string lights, candid shots of people truly enjoying themselves. And then I saw the comments that made my heart skip. Mixed in with the congratulations from friends were comments from extended family members who had seen my posts. My cousin Sarah had written, "Jenna, your home is absolutely beautiful. So sorry we could not make it, but it looks like an amazing celebration." My great-aunt Helen had posted, "Sweetheart, I am so proud of everything you have accomplished. Your house looks like a fairy tale." These were family members who rarely used Facebook, who must have seen my posts and felt compelled to reach out with genuine warmth and pride. In contrast to my parents and siblings, these relatives seemed truly happy for my success. But it was my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez's comment that brought tears to my eyes. She had written, "Jenna and David, thank you for including us tonight. In 40 years of living in this neighborhood, I have never felt more welcome by new residents. Your home radiates the same warmth and kindness that you both bring to everything you do." This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not blood relations who made you feel small, but chosen people who celebrated your growth and supported your dreams. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 unread text messages from my immediate family. The messages ranged from hurt confusion to outright anger. My mother had written, "Jenna, I cannot believe you would throw a party and not invite your own family. How could you embarrass us like this in front of everyone on Facebook?" Marcus had sent, "Really classy, Jenna. Way to show everyone what kind of person you really are." But it was Sophia's message that surprised me most. "I saw your party on Facebook and your house is absolutely gorgeous. I am hurt that we were not invited, but I kind of understand why. Can we talk?" That afternoon, while David worked in the garden and I cleaned up from the party, my mother called. For the first time in months, I answered. "Jenna Marie." She began using my middle name the way she had when I was in trouble as a child. "You owe your family an explanation. How could you buy a house, throw a party, and not even tell us about it? Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to find out through Facebook that our own daughter was celebrating without us?" I took a deep breath, looking out at the garden where David was planting new roses. "Mom, I invited everyone who has supported my dreams and celebrated my successes. I invited people who have made me feel loved and valued exactly as I am." "But we are your family," she protested. "We raised you, we sacrificed for you, we loved you your entire life." "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You tolerated me, you criticized my choices, dismissed my achievements, and made me feel like an embarrassment for wanting more than what you thought I deserved. Love does not make someone feel like they have to shrink themselves to be acceptable." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought she had hung up. Finally, she spoke, and her voice was different, smaller. "I do not understand what we did wrong. We just wanted you to be practical, to not get hurt by having impossible dreams." "My dreams were not impossible, Mom. They just seemed impossible to you because you were too afraid to dream them yourself." After that conversation, I decided to block my family's numbers temporarily. I needed space to process everything that had happened, space to enjoy my new life without constant emotional manipulation. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into work and my relationship with David. I started therapy to better understand the family dynamics that had shaped me for so long. My therapist helped me see that my parents' behavior stemmed from their own fears and limitations, not from any deficiency in me. "Some people," she told me, "are so frightened of taking risks that they cannot tolerate watching others succeed where they failed to try. Your success forced them to confront their own choices, and that made them uncomfortable." 3 months later, David proposed to me in our garden under the oak tree where we had shared so many evening conversations. The ring was vintage with an Art Deco setting that perfectly matched the style of our home. As I said yes through tears of joy, I realized that I had finally found what I'd been searching for my entire life: unconditional love and acceptance. When we posted our engagement photos on Facebook, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Friends and colleagues congratulated us, sharing their excitement for our future together. And slowly, a few family members began reaching out again. My great-aunt Helen called to offer her grandmother's wedding dress. My cousin Sarah asked if she could help with wedding planning. Even Sophia sent a tentative text asking if we could start rebuilding our relationship. I realized that not all family relationships were doomed to repeat the same patterns. Some relatives had simply been following the lead of my parents, not knowing how to reach out independently. When given the opportunity to connect directly, they showed genuine love and support. 6 months after the housewarming party, I made the decision to unblock my parents and Marcus. I was not ready for a full relationship, but I wanted to leave the door open for growth and change. The conversations were awkward at first, filled with careful apologies and tentative questions about my life. But gradually, I began to see small changes. My mother started asking about my work instead of criticizing my choices. My father actually visited my business website and told me he was proud of what I had built. Marcus took the longest to come around, but eventually he admitted that he had always felt pressure to be the perfect son and had resented me for seeming to escape those expectations. We began having real conversations for the first time since childhood. The breakthrough came when I invited them to visit California for my birthday. Not for a big celebration, just a quiet weekend where they could see my life without the pressure of a crowd or cameras. Walking through my home, my mother was quiet for a long time. Finally, she turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, "Jenna, I owe you an apology. I spent so many years being afraid that you would outgrow us that I tried to keep you small. But this life you have built, this home, this love with David, this is everything I should have wanted for you. Sometimes the best revenge is not hurting those who hurt you. It is living so well that their absence from your joy becomes their loss, not yours." I learned that I could not control how my family saw me, but I could control how I saw myself. I could not make them proud of me, but I could be proud of myself. My family and I are still rebuilding our relationship. It is not perfect, and there are still moments when old patterns try to resurface. But the difference now is that I have boundaries. I have a life that I love and people who love me exactly as I am. Their approval is no longer necessary for my happiness, which paradoxically has made it possible for them to finally see me clearly. The housewarming party was not just a celebration of homeownership. It was a celebration of becoming the person I was always meant to be, surrounded by people who had been waiting to love that person all along. What would you do if you stopped waiting for approval from people who were never going to give it? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply shine so brightly in your own life that the people who matter cannot help but be drawn to your light, while those who do not matter fade into irrelevance. If this story resonated with you, I would love to hear about your own experiences with difficult family dynamics in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and personal happiness? How did you handle it? Please hit that like button if you believe that chosen family can be just as powerful as blood family, and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that their dreams are valid and their happiness matters. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you are never too old, too ambitious, or too different to create the life you truly want. The only approval you need is your own.